Something that I've learned about myself when it comes to collecting and being a content creator on YouTube is that I can typically gauge how excited I am or impressed that I am with a figure release based off of how fast did I make a YouTube video about it. Typically, when I receive something, it's within the first week, if anything. Sure, some projects take a little bit longer than that, but usually the bar is there in terms of, hey, if I get something in, I'll make that review relatively soon. Now, when it came to this figure in particular, it took a little bit longer, which is not necessarily a good thing. So today we're going to be looking at the Machine56 Type6 limited release. Basically, it's the black and white version of their new collaboration with Devil Toys. Now, in terms of collecting these designer figures, there's a certain level of compromising you have to do in terms of what the intent is in terms of the collectible, because the author or the artist's intent isn't necessarily in line with the collector. So when it came to getting this figure, I was under the assumption that it was like the typical Devil Toys figures that I've gotten in my collection, where the build quality is there and the artist's interpretation or artist's vision is achieved. Now, something that I kind of forgot when it came to these figures, designer toys in general, is that they're not often meant to be action figures. They're not meant to be something to be played with. So this is where I kind of get disappointed with this release. The box art, the design overall, and everything, the materials used, they're very nice, but I feel like this is a bit of a step back in terms of things being short-sighted. So, you get the miscellaneous stuff like a sticker, a keychain, a lot of reading material in terms of a poster and some other accessories. The typical fare for a 1/6 scale figure. But something that I've noticed with at least this figure in particular, and I want to really hone in on that, is that it's this figure that I've kind of had the most problems with in terms of like the short-sightedness of it. Because as I was filming this and looking over the figure, and especially now that I've had time with the figure, I can't help but feel like a lot of this could have been resolved through a little bit more time in the oven, or possibly even just looking at what else is on the market in terms of what is available to be used as parts. Now, I should take into consideration for myself that I'm not an action figure designer. I'm not an artist per se, so I don't know the back end of it. So whenever I kind of give my interpretation, it's just from a collector's perspective, because even a lot of the choices here seem kind of, I don't know, weird to me. But that being said, you do get an assortment of hands and what have you. The typical fanfare for what you would consider a 1/6 scale action figure. And again, it's up to interpretation as to, or at least the intent is debatable as with these designer figures, I should say. And it's just like the minor things that just add up, unfortunately, with this release. And I apologize if I'm not really talking about the figure right now. I'm trying to buy time to showcase all these accessories that you get. They're very cool and they're well designed and things like that. It's just the problems, they add up, and we'll get to them in a second. And something you do get included is an extra shirt, and it's mirrored to a 1:1 scale shirt that they do make. Now, I should also mention that Machine56 is its own entity, and they recently switched over to collaborating with Devil Toys to make their figures big, because previously I think it was Glitch Network or some other company that was making their figures, and admittedly they weren't the best quality in terms of body parts and stuff like that. So when they announced that they were collaborating with Devil Toys, I was really excited, because I think Devil Toys is a great avenue for artists to kind of get their vision made in 1/6 scale. But having received this figure is kind of a little, you know, setback. But I guess it really depends on whether or not the artist wanted it a certain way or what have you. But something that I should mention as well is that I didn't get this figure at retail. I found a broken, quote-unquote broken listing, and I got it for way less than retail. Now, had I paid retail, I probably would have been even more disappointed and set off by this figure. But suffice to say, I'm glad that I didn't pay the full retail. But also included is the extra head sculpt, and I think this is pretty cool. You know, you can kind of swap this out for the character that it's already comes with, or you can kind of make your own thing, which is kind of what I did later on after I filmed all of this. But yeah, trying to go back to the price thing, this is a limited release, and I feel like it didn't necessarily need to be a limited release. That's Machine56 all the way. They are all about these, you know, limited drops and what have you. But this is the figure itself, and I am hesitant to say that it's just like, it boggles the mind, some of the choices here, but I should mention that the build quality is nice and everything. The, you know, typical Devil Toys quality is here. No knock against Devil Toys. It's more so like the minor things that they did. Like, for example, here, I know this is a limited release, an exclusive figure, but I've noticed with mine, at least, with how long it's been sitting in the box, it kind of has some staining on the back. I'm not too familiar with how often it is to see like white foam used as a protectant in action figure boxing, but this uses a black foam, which is more typical, that at least what I've seen more often. And unfortunately, this figure has been sitting on that black foam, and that stain has moved and transferred onto the coat. Not necessarily visible in the footage here, but you can definitely notice it in person. You can see it mostly around the shoulder, and you can kind of see it here on the hoodie itself. It's a little bit of discoloredness, almost like a yellow tinge to it. And at the price that they're asking for this, I feel like that's just an oversight you can't make. And this isn't even the biggest issue that I have, but it's unfortunate because this is such a well-designed figure. I really do like the artistry behind it, and for these minor details to just, you know, I don't know, take it under or undermine all that really is unfortunate. Now, something that I've kind of been playing around with is trying to replace this body. Nothing wrong with the tolerances or anything like that, but you would think, since they're using a black base body, that the hinge joints and everything would be black molded, or at least molded in black plastic. That's not the case here. I'm not sure what they did or what they were trying to, I guess, cut corners, but the joints are nude. They're like a flesh color, and I've noticed as I've been posing it, moving it around, swapping out the hands, the paint has come off. Now, the argument can be made that nowhere does it advertise this as an action figure, not to be played with, but to be posed or anything like that. But if that's the case, why not go down the route of a statue or a mannequin that can't be posed, and then you don't have to worry about that. But now that you've added the moniker of an action figure, or using an action figure body, you would think you kind of work towards having a higher tolerance in terms of the wear and tear, because I'm sure there's people out there that are going to be posing this and, you know, taking pictures of it, as you should, but that's just not the case here. And I feel like that kind of really does undermine the figure, in my opinion, and my, I guess, enjoyment of it. Sure, I can replace the body and everything, but I can't really undo the staining without damaging the vinyl sticker and decals and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. This was definitely a tricky figure to kind of overview and look at, because I guess this was a reality check in terms of, I have to remember that when it comes to these designer toys, they're not necessarily toys, they're more of an art piece. And I apologize if I didn't necessarily go over the figure and the aesthetics, but I figured the visuals and everything would go more in depth with that. But yeah, unfortunately, the the minor details kind of ruined this figure for me. But if you get an opportunity to find it at less than retail, I'd recommend it. At retail, it's kind of a hard one to recommend. But yeah, with that said, I appreciate you guys checking this video out, and if you feel so inclined, please like, comment, and or subscribe. I very much appreciate it. I'll catch you all next time.